I'm back. Hey, it's me, Tiffany the Budgetnista Aliche, your favorite financial educator and host of Money Club from Yahoo Finance, where I help you with the myths and misunderstandings you might have about money, honey. There's a lot of alliteration there. And in this episode, we're going to talk about financial stress during the holidays. Is it mandatory? Does it have to be? Is there a way to let it go? Let it go. Anyway, here's the thing. The holidays come around every single year, and yet so many of us, me being us, we are shocked, we're appalled, we're surprised, we're stressed because we have not financially prepared for the holidays, and so we carry this stress with us. Is it mandatory though? Well, PwC did a study and they found out that in 2024, the average adult plans on spending over $1,600 during the holidays. Is that you? This is 7% more than last year in 2023 and 15% more than 2022. That's a lot of spending, and the stress keeps rising. You might be asking yourself, what can I do to manage during this time? Are there tools? Are there tips? Of course there are. This would not be Money Globe if there wasn't. So we have a guest that's coming into the studio today. I want you to welcome, be on your best behavior for Michael Liersch. He is head of advice and planning for investment and wealth at Wells Fargo. And he's also a doctor, not that kind of doctor, but he's a doctor of behavioral science. So who knows better than him? I don't know. So welcome into the stew, Michael. We hope that you help us get our stress together. Welcome to the studio, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing well, Tiffany. Thank you for having me.
I know we're in good spirits, but we are going to talk about financial stress during the holiday season.
Which is also spirited in a way.
Yeah.
Because holidays, stress, it kind of comes along.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Well, I just want to know, before we dive into all the things, budgeting, let's talk about you. How did you even get into this space, the financial stressor space? I found out you're kind of smart or whatever. Maybe you might have something called a doctorate or whatever.
Something like that. So what I studied was this idea of how does the brain work when it comes to making money decisions.
Okay.
And they call it a PhD in cognitive psychology.
Oh, excuse me.
So I'm a doctor. And so all that means is the mind works in very predictable ways when it comes to money. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about here today. And then ultimately, because it's so predictable, you can actually do very predictable things to manage your decision making in a way that serves you, doesn't hurt you, Tiffany.
Okay.
And so that's what I have a PhD in.
So now that we're in the thick of the holiday season, and so what are some of the most common holiday stressors financially that you see that come up for people?
So when we think of holiday stressors, the top one really is the social pressure and stress around the holiday, getting together with family. Can I afford it? The gift giving process, how much should I be spending? Spouses and partners, you all want to surprise each other with the most amazing gift. Super stressful. So that's by far and away the number one. The number two is people are afraid they're going to overspend during the holidays and have to make up for it in the new year, which also is tax time. It also is the time where you're making last minute contributions to very important things like retirement accounts. So there's a lot in this, which is social, but also really technical in terms of, am I going to have enough? Can I afford the new year? It's not great to start the new year without enough money.
That's true. Well, doctor, why do we know the holidays come around all the time, like the same time every year, and yet they catch us, not Christmas again. So why do we do this? Why do we continually kind of re-injure ourselves financially?
Well, I hate to say it, Tiffany, but we're human.
Okay.
That's why. And so there's something wonderful about that. We're human, so that's the reason. And then when you think about, well, why do we keep repeating the same behaviors? Humans like this idea of uncertainty reduction. So we like certainty. And so by doing the same thing every year, it creates this element of certainty, even if the certainty doesn't lead to great outcomes. So we have to really push ourselves to do something different, Tiffany.
Okay.
And so that's what we're going to talk about today. What can we do to push ourselves, again, in very predictable ways, to do it a little differently so that this time we start the new year off right and we actually have fun during the holiday rather than being so stressed out?
Well, what are some things people can do to manage that stress? Because we're here now. We'll talk about some things to do prior, but in the thick of it, it's already happening. We're going to grandma's house, or I want to buy my niece and nephew things. Like, what are some things I can do to reduce some of that financial stress while we're in the thick of it?
So when you're in the thick of it, when you're getting together with family, it's really important to really have a conversation at the beginning of those get-togethers. What are you going to do? And I'm not saying you have to set like a corporate agenda or something, but it's really good to kind of plan it out together as a family and be open and authentic and vulnerable a bit, Tiffany. What can everyone afford? What's going to make everyone comfortable? And at the end of the day, how are you all going to collaborate and participate together to have a financially free holiday? And what I mean by that is living in a way where you feel financially free. You have that freedom to actually enjoy your life. So that could involve eating in instead of going out, figuring out how much you're going to spend if you do choose to go out. If you're going to go to the movies, are you going to bring the candy and popcorn and sneak it in instead of buying
Not
it
go
there?
to jail.
Yeah, exactly. But it's really important to think about all those techniques and methods that's going to make everyone be able to participate and not make anyone feel less than from a financial perspective. Does that make sense to you?
It does. Honestly, you would be so proud of me because about 10 years ago, maybe more, my sisters and I decided, I'm one of 5 girls, that I cannot buy presents for all of you girls.
No.
So we decided that every Thanksgiving we exchange names. We even use this online site called Elfster.
I love it.
That exchange it, and then we only buy presents for one sister. And beforehand, we have the budget conversation. Each sister would put on her list 2 or 3 things that she might like. So there's still this element of surprise and gift giving, but not the stress of buying 4 gifts. How can people factor all that we're talking about here? What are some ways that people can factor this into their spending? Should they be setting budgets ahead of time? What is the way? So if I am going to okay, I do want to buy people presents. And honestly, I make enough to do so. So what kind of financially, how do I set myself up?
So when you think about budgeting, it's really important to think about how much you actually have on hand from a cash perspective to spend out of pocket. And then think about how much you might need to put on something like a credit card, so basically borrowing money to buy gifts. And I want to highlight, Tiffany, neither is wrong.
Okay.
And neither is right. You just need to put it together and make it intentional. That's the key, because if you're going to charge things on a credit card, there's some credit cards that are great for big purchases. There are some credit cards that are great for travel. So make sure you're using the right ones so you get those points back, the cash back that you deserve. And then on the other side, if you're spending cash, you also want to make sure you have enough money going into the new year, for unexpected expenses. Okay. And if anything happens, during the holidays, things break too. So you don't want to deplete your cash reserves as well. So really being intentional about how much you're going to spend, but also where you're going to pull it from is really important. The other thing I would mention is, again, there's no right or wrong budget. And a lot of people think of it, Tiffany, as I'm going to make a trade. To your point, you spend X amount of money, I'm going to spend X amount of money. That's really not the way to think about it. You've got to think about your own financial situation. What can you truly afford and what is meaningful to give to someone else within that context? And really make that clear to somebody. Accompany it with a note, a handwritten note, saying how much you thought of it. And it makes a big difference. There's a lot of evidence. Even sending someone a random text, Tiffany, makes a big difference, even sometimes more than giving a gift. So the gift of telling them why you're doing it, giving your gift a lot of intention and purpose with something handwritten is super important.
Oh, I love that. Because honestly, I have, especially my niece I have 2 nieces and nephew, and they're all under the age of 10. That would mean, so much more to me than them trying to buy me something.
100%. When my daughter writes me those, notes and then draws a picture, it melts my heart. And I didn't need a gift, actually, to accompany it.
I love that. Well, if someone is planning on spending, but they're I really want to cut back because inflation is crazy. Corporate, everything costs so much more money. So I'm you know what? I do want to spend money this holiday season, but just not as much as I normally spend. What should I be thinking about as I'm cutting back?
So people are really into dupes these days, and that. So dupe it. I think that's number one. Number two, when you think of buying things, it is about quality, not quantity. And I think that we went through this time in the United States where it's quantity. It's how much, the stack of presents under the tree. I think to the comment you made and what you do in your family, it's really the quality that really matters. Why are you buying it? How long is it going to last? What purpose is it going to serve? And how meaningful is it to the person you're giving it to? Really take that all into account. And then how much of it that you give, it's really not that important. Okay. So again, quality, not quantity. Also, in addition to dupes, I will say we see a movement to human beings really shopping secondhand for gifts. And that idea of reusing something, it's not only leaning into the sustainability component for our planet, but it's kind of fashionable now.
Yeah.
So really think about, how could you go, shop and get something second, third hand and give that to someone else?
Oh, I love that. Because I love a good thrift store, secondhand store. You can find beautiful things that you maybe would have cost so much more when they first came out. And it's tailored almost to the person that you're thinking about.
So I know some clients who actually have started trying to, let's say, exit things from their own home. And so what they've started doing is actually wrapping up the knickknacks in their house
and
giving them to others, and they tell them. And when people open them up, they're not offended. They actually think it's pretty cool and important, especially if it let's say it's a picture frame, a beautiful picture frame, and it's accompanied with a beautiful picture of them, whatever that is. So get creative, avoid that kind of inflationary pressure, and do all the things that we just
I love that. Oh my gosh, Michael. Just give us just a minute because we're going to pause for the cause, but we're going to be right back. But you listening or watching, we're going to be right back with more Michael, more financial stress relief. Stay with us. And we are back. So, Michael, what were you saying about?
It's really, I think, important to think about what you would want, to your point, and what's meaningful to you. And I think reflecting that back can help you really budget appropriately.
Well, speaking of budgets, I am the budgetnista.
Okay.
Can you walk us through,
Yes.
if I was going to create a holiday budget,
Yes.
What are some best practices to creating this holiday budget?
So first of all, write down all the human beings that you want to give gifts to.
Okay. Are we doing the Santa? Making a list, checking it twice. We're going to find out who's naughty or nice.
Yeah. Dooby-doo. So absolutely. It's really important because that can run away from you quickly, as you well know. And it doesn't mean you can't add people to that list, but it's really critical. Are these the people you want to give gifts to? And if you forgot to add names, it's kind of informative, Tiffany, right? The second thing is when you think about those names and how much you want to spend, and you mentioned this, what is your limit per person? And it doesn't need to be the same limit per person, right? And then add it up. And what does that number look like? Is it $1,000? Is it $2,000? Is it, a couple $100? And then you have to look at your bank account, Tiffany, or your bank accounts. You have to look at your money.
Okay.
Do you have that money to spend? And only you know. And so budgeting, I think we all try to make it all technical and complicated. It's really that simple. And when you think about whether you have the money, what are the essential bills you need to pay? What do you want to do that's fun outside of giving those gifts?
Okay.
And ultimately, are you going to have to borrow then to buy the presents that you have listed? And if you do, is that something you actually want to do and bring into the new year? And ultimately, can you afford to do that, Tiffany? So it's not that complicated at the end of the day, but you got to make that list. You got to check it twice. And if there are naughty people on there and they're not nice, you have to ask yourselves, do they belong on there?
Dr. Michael said, just use the Santa method when you create the
Yes.
I love that.
There you go.
Santa's like, not them stealing my whole swag. Don't sue us, Santa. We gave you your credit. So you said something about borrowing. I like to swipe my card here and there. And you mentioned that there's no judgment about using credit cards. So if someone is like, you know what, I don't mind using my credit card, what is the best way if you are going to use a credit card? And what should the payoff plan kind of look like? Can you walk us through what I should be thinking about if I'm going to use my card this year?
Yes. So if you're going to use your card this year, you have to think about, again, the rewards that you might get from that card and ultimately what you're going to pay for. And will you get the rewards commensurate with how you're using the card? So that's number one. So again, travel, big purchases, whatever that is. The second thing is what's the rate on the card? And how quickly do you intend to pay off the purchase?
Okay.
Because if the card has a higher rate and you intend to take a long time to pay off the purchase, you might want to choose a lower rate card if you have that available to you. So it's really thinking about those dynamics. The last one is, making the minimum payment. Again, no judgment is fine, but ideally you'd be able to make something a bit above the minimum payment when you're making, non-essential purchases like gifts for others, so that you can pay it off more rapidly and you don't feel the ongoing holiday stress, Tiffany, far into the new year, or perhaps even into the next holiday season.
Okay. I love that. It's just like, that doesn't mean you can't use your card, but if you're going to use it, see if there's something that you can get back to.
That's right.
You know?
You got it. You got it.
So, now that we're talking about 2025 and the new year, what are some do's and don'ts to set ourselves up for financial success? So we know being mindful of like how we're setting aside money for gifts, but is there something else that I should be keeping in mind before the new year hits?
Yes. So I think the first piece here, Tiffany, is we always have to remember, to your point on looking out for yourself, you got to pay yourself first.
Okay.
So are you saving? Are you investing? Are you paying your bills on time? That comes first, always. Because if you're giving gifts and sacrificing yourself, your family, your spouse or partner, your own financial future, that's when you have to really question, is gift giving, spending money on gifts, the right way forward? The second piece that I would take into account when you're thinking about the holiday season and managing through it is, how then are you going to stick to your gift plan, your budget plan? So there you need an accountability partner, Tiffany.
Okay. Oh, I love me a good accountability partner.
Yeah, and it's not always best if it's your spouse or your partner.
Okay.
It really isn't. No. That can create a lot of stress between the two. So having a friend, like my wife has a friend, they take walks together every week, and that's her accountability partner. I have friends at work, and we talk about things, and those are my accountability partners. And of course we come together and we make decisions, but have someone just that you regularly talk to that doesn't add stress, but actually diminishes stress. So that accountability partner can be key.
So what if somebody's already there? What if they're feeling the anxiety already and they're trying to break free from that? Like, what are some things that people can do to break free from like the financial holiday stress, where it's like, I'm already in the thick of it. I am judging myself. I spent too much, but I still don't even feel like I did a good job with the kids, and I didn't get my partner something. So you're in the thick of the whirlwind. What can people do to calm that anxiety down?
So for the brain, getting it out of your brain is really important.
Okay.
See, if you have a journal, if that's where you feel most comfortable, write down all your feelings, how you feel about it, all the things that you feel like aren't aligned or aren't serving you, and then just write one thing that you're going to do differently to get back on track. And it doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be a tiny thing. You could even write, I'm going to be a little bit more intentional tomorrow about how much I'm spending. Just that, and just maybe put a little sticky everywhere and remind yourself. Okay. The second thing I would encourage people to do if they're willing to move beyond that is, if you have a family, you mentioned family, have a family meeting.
Okay.
Just be open about it. Just sit down with everyone. Say, like, we need get off your devices, stop watching TV, whatever it is. We're going to sit down. We're going to talk about it. I'm not having fun this holiday because we're spending too much, or I'm spending in the way that I don't like. How do we all work together to make this holiday different? And those family meetings can be huge aha moments for everybody. Because if you're feeling that way, it's likely that all the people you're around are feeling your stress. And so taking it all down together can be a huge win.
You must know my dad. We had family meetings every Thursday.
I really like your family.
No,
can I come hang out?
That part was not fun. I was like, I don't want a family meeting, because it usually was like, who got to see, who's not doing their chores.
Okay.
Certainly we talked about other things and we played games and stuff
to
lighten the load. But I'm like, I know it was me who got to see and didn't do my chores.
Well, so this family meeting is really just about being open and authentic about what's working and what's not. You mentioned do's and don'ts. It's really that simple, and it's everyone participating in that. So it's everyone talking about the C and the A they got, not just some people.
Well, this is just a little off question for you. What is your favorite gift that you remember as a kid that you were like, oh my gosh, this gift? We all have that one gift that we're just like, it could be something as simple as a teddy bear, but like a gift that really, like during the holiday season, that you remember.
Do you remember Transformers?
Of course.
I guess they're still around, right? I'm dating myself now. So there was something called Optimus Prime, which is the head transformer. Yes. I got that one. I'll never forget it, because I grew up very poor, and I know that my mom saved every extra penny she had to go to this place called G.I. Joe's, which is kind of like a CVS. And she bought it for me, wrapped it up for me. And Mom, I'm sorry to say this, I did tear a little bit of a piece and I looked.
Didn't we all?
And I knew, I knew what I put it back.
No surprise for me. You were like,
I didn't want that surprise. I was like, it's Optimus Prime. It made my entire holiday season. So that's the one I remember. And I'm sure it costs, what did it cost? Like $20?
which is a lot. Like,
$15? Yeah.
I was one of 5 kids, so everything was a lot.
Oh my gosh.
For me, it was like, remember when Cabbage Patch was like the
Oh,
thing?
yeah. It was around the same time, I think.
But my mom was like, no, we're not. But there was these dolls that looked like Cabbage Patch. They were called My Life dolls.
It's like a dupe.
Yes. It was a dupe. But I was
They had
so
GoBots too. It was the same idea.
Yes. And I was so excited because it was like close enough.
Yes.
And same thing, I might have ripped the package the day before. So no, I just love that because, you make a way. You make the holidays about what it's about, which is a family and connectedness and enjoyment. And so thank you, Michael, for coming. Dr. Michael.
Well, I appreciate it. I loved being here. Can I say one more thing?
Of course.
So when you think about holiday and stress, I do want to normalize it again, Tiffany. So it is normal. The easiest way, though, to tackle it is to talk to other people.
Okay.
And talk to other people you trust and come up with ideas together.
Okay.
So I just want to highlight that accountability partner, that conversation, being open and honest. In the United States, we have done so many studies. It's just so hard for people to talk about money and finances and financial stress. It's really not great for anyone in the U.S. So let's open the conversation like you're doing, and that's why I admire you so much, Tiffany.
Thank you. Well, Michael, I like to always do a little wrap up. The teacher in me is always just like, okay, so what did we learn today, class? Okay. So you're going to let me know if I got an A or not.
A+. I already know.
So are y'all ready? Okay, so this is what I learned, and maybe I left some things out. Let us know in the comments or whatever. Okay, so one, that holiday stress is a thing, and it is normal to feel stressed, but it is not helpful to stay there. Okay?
Correct.
Right? If you are feeling stressed about the holidays, some of the things that you can do, creating a budget for yourself. Something you said, Michael, was taking it outside of the head and on to something else. And also, you could do so by writing it down, but also talking to the people that are affected by what your financial choices are this holiday season. So you don't have to do those things alone. It's good so far?
It's just like a triple play.
I mean, right?
I've never heard of it before.
And as you are creating your holiday budget, it's going to be important to make that list, get your Santa on, check it twice, decide if you really want to spend this kind of money, what that's going to look like. So that way your money is not surprised. You have a plan like already in your pocket.
You got it.
Right? And I think the last thing that I was actually surprised by, but comforted by, that it is okay to use your credit card, but not to use it just wildly. Use the credit card in a way where you have a plan. That if you're going to use your credit card, make sure it's a credit card where you get something back and that you have a plan for payoff. If you're going to use a card that you know you're not going to pay off right away, for example, you want to use a credit card with the lowest interest rate that you have to pay down. If you do these things, then you can have a minimal, if not zero, stress-free financial holiday.
I love it.
Look at me.
And the key there with that last one is don't judge yourself. It is what it is.
Yes.
Right?
Well, we thank Michael for coming to the studio today. And for you for listening, I am Tiffany the Budgetnista, your favorite financial educator. If you need any financial assistance outside of this, head on over to getgoodwithmoney.com. And as usual, tune into Money Glow Up from Yahoo Finance with me every single Thursday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at yahoofinance.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget, financial stress is normal, but staying there is a choice. You can lift that stress by doing these tips that we learned from Michael today. Until next week, y'all. Bye.
This content was not intended to be financial advice and should not be used as a substitute for professional financial services.